Now, you might be saying something. I know everyone's going to say this. They're too tall. They're too tall. Have them duck when they walk into things. .200 IQ answer. Hey guys, so this video started out as the different races I'd like to see from World of Warcraft because I did the video on the allied races. I thought, well, I would like to do a video on the just normal races that I'd like to see. What ended up happening was I got to the last two and sort of just kind of went on a rant and kept going. And so I'm going to simply just cut that into its own video because I think actually it's more entertaining than the rest of it. I mentioned things like Naga, Murlocs, Ethereals, Kobold, those sorts of things. But there were two that stood out to me as the most requested races to play. And I hope you guys enjoy. I'll give me a like if you want. If you like the video, subscribe if you want to see more. Of course, this is premature. Maybe you should watch the video first and then decide. There we go. 200 IQ. Let's do it. That just about does it. Now let's get into the two most likely and the two most asked for, and the two easiest to put in the game. Let's talk first about ogres. Let's talk about either horde race, obviously, or perhaps even both, which would be a kind of a twist. Now, we know that Imperator, is it Morgok? One of those three, maybe? It's probably none of those three. He was the last Imperator of the Gorian Empire. Now, I'm sorry about BC lore. I'm not too well versed in ogres in that era. But, we fought the Imperator in Warlords of Draenor. And the Gorian Empire, it would have been really cool if he escaped Draenor and came to Azeroth. Now, we've seen ogre ruins in places like Feralis, and we also saw more ogre ruins off the coast of Feralis. Now, it means to say that they migrated west. And there was this little snippet about the boats that go to the dark side of Azeroth and never really return. Could it be ogres? Possible. It also could be the other thing that I'm about to talk about after the ogres. We know that Cho'Gall was the leader of the Twilight's Hammer clan, and that he didn't really have too many other ogres in his arsenal. He had a few, but it's possible that they shunned him and kicked him out, just like the Imperator did in Warlords of Draenor. It would have been cool to see the Gorian Empire. It would be cool to travel west and look and see, yep, there's the Gorian Empire. Oh, he's at war with the Vrykul. Leads me to the next one. But, quickly, before I go, lore-wise, ogres absolutely make sense. Either just for the Horde or for both, a little less likely, but for Horde more likely. The ogres have been in the story since Warcraft. They've been there. Possible to introduce them. Easily possible to make a female model. Maybe you can give them 3 boobs since they have 2 mouths. There you go. I think it'd be cool to have an ogre voice lines with them talking in unison, like when you yell, and one's like, bah, and the other one's like, bah, and they have that synergy of the different levels of voices and how their jokes would coincide. Like maybe they tell jokes to each other. You know how they all have an animation. It'd be cool to have them look at each other and like one look like WTF, the other one's telling the joke, and then they both laugh. Easily done. Really cool. That's why I think Blizzard will never put them as a race, because they're cool, because they're menacing, because there's so much that they can do with them. They don't want to take the time. Sorry, it's how I feel. Moving on to the final and the most requested playable race, the Vrykul. Now, the Vrykul and the ogres can kind of go hand in hand here. We know about Jordan the Bloodwake, who has 1,000 ships at his arsenal. He could be in the west part of Azeroth as well. I would love to see them two go at it. You could bring the Vrykul into the Alliance, and you could bring the ogres into the Horde. How cool would that be? I talked a bit of, I think this is in a video before, I talked about the jokes of the Vrykul, or the Kavaldir, if they were being implemented as Horde. The thing about the Vrykul and the ogres is they could introduce a new class, the Rune Master. A new playable class that's ranged. And they could have like some weird gimmick, like you've heard of bloodlust and heroism, but what about anti-bloodlust and heroism? And people be like, what? cool. Maybe they shout, or they put a rune within 40, or like they put a rune above their head, and anything within 40 yards has their casting speed reduced by 5% or something. Melee attack speed slowed by 5%, casting reduced by 5%, or, depending on however they want to do it. Damn, that's cool. That'd be cool to see a nice big T above, for tier. If you know of Norse, then you know who tier is. Even if you know WoW lore, you know who tier is. That's just going crazy with it. They could put runes below themselves, and they could have runes follow them. They could have a defensive rune, like maybe a big O just circles them, and it's just a protective rune that reduces damage. There's so many cool things they could do with it. Vrykul storyline, easy to introduce. Easy to introduce. Maybe after the death of the Prime Designate, because he was screwing around with the dragons, that the Vrykul decided, you know what, we're going to go with the Alliance. The Horde tried to enslave Aegir. I don't like that. I'm going with the Alliance. Maybe they're a neutral race. See, the reason Pandaren didn't work as a neutral race is because they weren't cool enough. You're telling me that if Vrykul were introduced right now as a neutral race, that there wouldn't be a ton of people on both factions playing them? Absolutely, yes, there would be. You would see like Pandaren are usually at the bottom, and you'd see Vrykul just pass everything else, because Vrykul are cool. And not just that, even ogres. Now, you might be saying something. I know everyone's going to say this. They're too tall. They're too tall. Have them duck when they walk into things. $200 IQ answer. Just have them duck. Imagine having the ogres duck, and like the smart one, like the one with the deeper voice, ducks his head. The one with the higher voice gets his head, and as you're walking, he's like holding his head every time you walk into a building. Or maybe it happens 10% of the time. Maybe it happens 20% of the time. Maybe if you walk in backwards, it happens 100% of the time. Maybe they both bonk their heads. Maybe the same thing happens with the Vrykul. If you walk in backwards, he bonks his head. Easily done. This is stuff that's easy. People tell me they're too tall. There are quick, easy fixes for that. Maybe that there's doors. Maybe just make the doors bigger. Maybe you have like a goblins and Ogre sitting there scratching their heads. How do we make this door taller? It's not meant to be taller. Undercity's gone. It's not there anymore. You're telling me that they can't make doors bigger? Especially, or even if they duck, they don't have to do that. Just have them duck. Just have them have an animation duck every time you walk into a door. And if you screw up the animation, well, he just clips through the door. Who cares? Done. Easy. That's it. Just done. There's all your problems solved. You have lore reasons why the Vrykul and the Ogre should be accepted. You have mechanical reasons why the Vrykul and the Ogres can be accepted. You have everything that is an issue, you have it solved. I just solved every issue. Why? Because they're too cool. Because if they introduce Ogres and Vrykul, everybody would play them. And then what would they do? Well, they would have to focus on other races on making them cooler. Well, that's a lot more time. That's a lot more money. I don't think they're ever going to introduce the Vrykul and the Ogres. Because they're too cool. Because they're awesome. They're amazing. They look cool. They have a rich background. I would faction change everything, or race change, everything to Vrykul on the Alliance. I'd race change everything to Ogre on the Horde. But they're not going to do it, guys. They're just not. It makes total sense as to why they won't. It makes zero sense as to why they won't. Lore-wise, they could weave them in and out any way they want to. There's so much established lore to them that for them to join the Alliance or the Horde, or even both, you can have them join both, is easy. Have them both as an allied race, so then you can pick one. Now I'm depressed. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. Because I'm getting upset about a video game. Not to mention things I can't play inside of a video game. But that's it. I'm done. You guys have been staring at this face for too long. Don't I look like a wizard with this hood on? I got the ring. I got the rhino ring too. I look like a wizard. I should play a mage. So, question of the day. Do you think they'll ever add ogres or Vrykul? Let me know in the comments below. If you stuck it out, thank you. Hopefully they'll last at least 2 minutes. If not, we're informative, maybe entertaining. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Fucking Vrykul, man.